Americans are to blame for the problems that we're facing right now. And guess what? The White House just doesn't care about how you feel. Now, you might think that that's just a little bit much, but they've proven it time and time again. It's also the message that they've been airing on mainstream media, a medium that's now slowly losing traction as more and more Americans realize the truth behind the curtains. This is why news outlets such as Washington Post, CNN, CBS News, Fox News, NBC News, and a slew of others are losing viewers at an alarming pace. But let's get back to what I said earlier. Does the White House really care about how we feel?
But in more broad terms, in general, we're not focused on every poll. We just are not. It is not important for us that we believe to focus on that. We're going to continue to do the work and work on protecting Medicare and Medicaid and making sure that Americans have their Social Security. And I think by saying that Americans support that, that is important for us to say that from here too, because we are actually delivering for the American people. We're actually doing what the American people want us to do. So when I say that, that's what I'm referring to. The work that we're doing, what we want to deliver on, what the American people care about. And it is the economy. It is lowering costs, right? I always talk about that. The president's number one priority is to continue to lower costs. And I talk about what he has done, whether it's junk fees, whether it's making sure that people have good paying jobs by making sure that we pass these historic legislation that's going to create good union paying jobs. All of those things are connected.
You know what else is connected? The White House social media platforms, with the exception of X and of course mainstream media. But before we even get into that, Jean-Pierre said that they're not really focused on what Americans are saying through the polls, mainly because a lot of them are just negative toward the Biden administration.
Just 4 weeks until the 2024 primary season kicks off, and in one key battleground, President Biden is getting big warning signs from a group that helped him win in 2020. Shaquille Brewster spoke to some young voters in Wisconsin.
I voted for Biden, and I told my friends to as well.
Evan McKenzie is a Starbucks worker and union organizer in Madison, Wisconsin, who cast his very first presidential ballot for Joe Biden.
Do you plan on voting for him this time around?
No, not anymore.
The 23-year-old was part of the surge in young voters in the liberal Dane County that helped Biden flip the battleground state 3 years ago. He's now angry at the president over his support for Israel's invasion of Gaza.
He is allowing this war to happen and is funding this war. I don't know what will happen if I don't vote for him, but I know it won't be me supporting that.
In 2020, Election Day exit polls showed young voters backed Biden over Donald Trump by more than 20 points. But a recent NBC News poll shows former President Trump leading this group by 4 percentage points, and President Biden at risk of losing a key part of his winning coalition.
Do you plan on voting for him in November?
I don't know.
60% of young voters say they oppose more funding and military aid to Israel.
On climate, on COVID responses, you could tell his administration were doing really great work. But I think after October 7th, the question became a matter of human rights.
Republican presidential candidates have also vocally supported Israel's campaign against Hamas, but it's President Biden's young progressive base that's been increasingly sympathetic to Palestinians.
Did all of you vote for Biden in 2020?
Yeah.
Yep.
Supporting Mr. Biden is a conversation, sometimes a debate, that this group of Wisconsin friends say they are now having regularly.
He has the largest infrastructure bill since Eisenhower. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Not enthused. I'd say overall I feel very pragmatic and strategic about it.
In 2020, I looked at Biden like a used car. Like, it will disappoint me. It's not going to have leather seats, and it's not going to have all the stuff that I want. But I mean, hopefully it'll get me from point A to point B. And I think he did that.
Which brings me to this really important question. Do you agree that this administration has done what Americans expect from them? One of which is to lower costs, right? So comment 1 if you think that the costs are actually going down. And comment 2 if you feel like the Bidenomics has actually made things worse for us. And while you guys are doing that, make sure to drop a like for the video. I really appreciate it. If you appreciate the effort and the research that goes into making these videos, click the like button and also consider subscribing to the channel so that you guys can be informed on everything and anything that matters to the American people. As long as it's the truth, of course. Appreciate that, guys. So now that we've established exactly how disconnected the White House is from our sentiment, let's hear what mainstream media says about the economy.
There's a real gap between how the economy is actually doing, at least based on most of the measurements we normally use, and how people think the economy is doing. Or, I should say at the very least, how they tell pollsters they feel about it. You can see it here on this chart. You see how the blue line, how you'd expect people would feel about economic numbers, and the red line, how they actually feel, have usually been in sync, right? Like when things get worse, people feel worse. When they get better, people feel better. Right now, there's a huge gulf between them. That gulf, it is worth noting, does not exist in similar wealthy countries like France and Germany and the UK. It's only here, even though we're doing a lot better than those places.
Now, if you ask me, he's basically saying that Americans are lying in the polls, the same ones the White House was talking about just a little while ago. So it's not that things are bad. We're just not seeing it the way that they see it. I think that they fail to realize that the perspective of average Americans on the economy, it relies a lot on how much they can take home after paying for their necessities and their bills. And if our savings aren't growing, then people are not really going to feel all that good about the economy. This now takes me to another phenomenon that's happening, one that involves channels like mine and mainstream media. You see, legacy media, meaning the usual channels that you can watch on TV, they're losing out to content creators. Why? Well, the idea is that consumers, which is you guys are looking for something that's a little bit more relevant. Now, if you ask me, you guys are looking for the truth. And I pride myself in informing you guys of the truth 24/7. Information that actually is relevant no matter how bad it might be. And this is echoed by the Washington Post with one of their contributors, Paul Faree. Do you guys see just how many people are tuning out? Some experts believe that the distrust was built throughout the years, but none quite like the last few years where we heard the same sentiment from many of them regarding the health crisis.
When you start to see growing, then you start to think of a future in which the thing bops around in communities of low vaccination rates, sort of keeping this community transmission, maybe further mutations. And we also know what the last winter was like. And the difference between, right? I mean, am I wrong about that? That the difference between a fully vaccinated country and not going into the winter is massive.
Well, it's important if you're not vaccinated. If you look at the people, the states, the cities, the counties that are highly vaccinated, they're safe. Their risk is extremely low. What we worry about are the states you put up on the screen and the people in those states who are at risk for a variant that's quite problematic. That's the situation, Chris. If you're vaccinated, you don't have a risk. And that's the reason why we say it's as simple as black and white. You're vaccinated, you're safe. You're unvaccinated, you're at risk. Simple as that.
Well, this aged like fine milk, huh? Because the truth is, vaccination doesn't do jack about transmissions. It just doesn't. And the virus doesn't check for a vaccine passport, even though some establishments did at the time. Now, it's no surprise that Americans don't trust mainstream media quite like they used to back in the day, especially given all the misinformation that they've been provided throughout the past few years, misinformation that they try to pin on, again, alternative media. I mean, I've done my best to be an alternative for information, and that's just kind of my goal. I want to keep you guys engaged. I want to keep you guys informed. I want more and more people who are seeking the truth, because you guys are the people who can actually make a difference. But what do y'all think? Is the age of mainstream media that follows a single narrative from the federal government or the powers that be over now? Are we now entering a new phase wherein, those who speak the truth will be elevated over those who speak due to special interests? Only time will tell. But I just want to say that, I'm just really glad to be making a difference, and I really couldn't have done it at all without you guys. So please share your thoughts down below. Let me know what you guys think about everything. And before I go, I just want to appreciate you guys for your time. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.